This is the Anime Triple Play, where I take a look at 3 anime that all have something in common, and today, Studio Trigger shows.
And it's going to be a triple play! 3 by 3 to the line! Banks in the three-pointer! An unassisted triple play!
Okay, first off, I'm not doing a summer breakdown video this year, mostly due to the fact that I've been feeling super unmotivated because this season is trash. Dropkick My Devil is pretty fun, How to Not Summon a Demon Lord is just the kind of trash I live for, and I'm hyped as fuck for this OVA to drop, and that's about all I have to say about this season. The rest of it is shit. So, on to the subject at hand. Studio Trigger is relatively new to the whole anime scene. Well, as a collective entity, that is. A good chunk of its senior members can trace their personal beginnings to Gainax, and some other big-time studios. But the studio itself was founded in late 2011. By the time 2013 came around, they showed some real promise with their Little Witch Academia short film, but there was another facet of Studio Trigger we had also come to know by this time as well. They had also produced the Inferno Cop series of shorts, which are made with a level of technical proficiency that I would consider underwhelming even for a high schooler's animation project. It's fun, but it's really nothing to write home about. With this dichotomy of absolute mastery in art, animation, storytelling, and a seldomly matched ability to pull this holy trinity of anime together, mixed with the don't give a fuck attitude, fly by the seat of your pants approach, it was going to be interesting to see what this animation studio of dualities would come up with as their first full-length TV anime. And well, the results were both nothing and everything we expected. Kill la Kill was billed as the show that would save anime by North American anime circles, and did it live up to that? Well, based on the very first episode, yes. That first episode, hell, that first scene with Gamagori and the stolen Goku uniform is superbly well done. If that doesn't sell you on the show or at least pique your interest, then go ahead and check yourself into your local morgue because you must be clinically dead. At the prestigious Honji Academy, strength is the only rule of law, and the mercilessly cold Satsuki Kiryuin rules the school built literally atop the surrounding city with an iron fist. At her side are her 4 most trusted allies, who she herself brought up from nothing, and gave them the most powerful Goku uniforms of all, clothes woven with life fibers that give their wearers unprecedented levels of power. But one day a wanderer named Ryuko Matoi strolls into town on a mission to find the person who murdered her father. Her only lead, the owner of the other half of her giant scissor blade. Aided by her father's greatest invention, Senketsu, a life fiber uniform that feeds off the blood of its wearer, she sets off to topple the hierarchy of Honji Academy and find the person undoubtedly within the institution's depths who killed her father. If that sounds a little bit ridiculous, don't worry, that's the Inferno Cop side of Studio Trigger at work. This is just some normal turbulence. Without giving anything away, this show is for the most part extremely well structured. It knows where it wants to go and it gets there fast without feeling too rushed. The character designs are fantastic, their motivations are reasonable and understandable for the most part, and their actions aren't outside of what you might expect them to do. That's the Little Witch Academia side, doing their thing by keeping the whole show glued together. However, where the show starts to hit some speed bumps is in the animation department. At times, the animation is absolutely jaw-dropping with its perspective shots and a lurid sensation of impact and weight, but at other times it seems completely phoned in with CGI walk tracks, the squad behind Inferno Cop getting in on key animation every once in a while, and just baffling decisions being made at some points. You will be hard-pressed to find another show with its animation skill laid so thick in some areas, but completely bereft in others. Now, in its defense, most of these bad animation shots are done for comedic effect. The show is very wacky and funny, and anytime you see this 2D animation flips being done or just simple animation, it's usually done to drive home comedic relief. The show also lacks any sort of consistent tone throughout. I mean, it looks like a sort of shonen action show with a lot of comedy thrown in and obviously some ecchi stuff in there, but are we trying to make some sort of deep commentary on the artificial power we humans let simple clothing have over us? Or are we just trying to have mindless fun with all these fight scenes between half-naked women? I don't know, I really gave up trying to answer that question about the time our big baddie was fingering her daughter in a bathtub. Whatever, mindless fun it is. Now back to the ass, titties, and girl taint. Except I can't really have mindless fun with this show because every once in a while the show takes it upon itself to try to explain with a serious tone what exactly it is the fuck I'm currently witnessing. I could do without the scientific analysis and my stripper magical girl shonen ecchi fight show trigger, thanks. But the show is well structured and well paced like I said before. It does keep you intrigued and every new arc has a purpose and does end end up with us moving closer to our big baddie down at the end. But even that has Trigger going bipolar on us again, because there are a few arcs that just get retconned, interrupted, or just outright drag on well past their welcome, like the Battlefield Trip arc. Great pun, terrible arc, try again, Trigger. Now all of this might seem like a show that just isn't worth your time. It may well seem like a show that just falls apart at the seams and doesn't give you a feeling of satisfaction at the end of its 24 episodes. However, that isn't the case at all. Despite all of this show is way more than the sum of its parts. It is an absolute experience to watch, and I think deserving of its fairly long runtime. A lot of people disagree with me on that. They say it should have been cut down to 12 episodes. I think 24 is fine. Although if we had gone down the Nisekoi route and just had a 20 episode run, I think that would have been absolutely perfect. Your mileage may vary with this show, just give that first episode a whirl and buckle up for one hell of a roller coaster. Speaking of roller coasters, how about our next show of the Triple Play, Kiznaiver? With some time taken off in 2014 and 2015 to work on a light novel adaptation and some other side projects, everyone was waiting to see what Trigger's new original TV series would be. And what we got was the oddly somber Kiznaiver. Our story focuses on Katsuhira, a young high school student who is incapable of feeling pain. This odd physical condition makes him a target for various bullies who use him as a punching bag, and since said condition makes him feel nothing, he just goes along with it, never standing up for himself. However, his childhood friend Chidori sticks up for him since he won't do it for himself, and no one else will. If you sense the beginnings of a romance here, oh well, we haven't even scratched the surface yet. We're about to have the makings of an entire love polygon on our hands. The shipping fuel in this anime is for real, yo. In the shadows, seeing this young man as the perfect specimen to conduct her social experiment, Rei Ayanami clone number 426, the quiet and reserved Sonozaki abducts Katsuhira, Chidori, and a number of their classmates to participate in the Kizna experiment, where they all receive matching scars that bind them through the pain that each one of them experience. To put it simply, if one of them gets punched, they all feel it. And yes, as we find out later, that even extends to emotional pain as well. How cute. Now you might be saying at this point, oh man, that sounds like a great plot for a mystery show. And you'd be right. That would be a great premise for a mystery suspense show, except for the fact that everything is explained in one big ol' exposition dump by Sonozaki herself. For an emotionless doll character, when she does this exposition dump, it is like really out of character. She's very talkative for some reason. This effectively takes any mystery in the show right out at the knees. It would have made the ensuing test and trial Sonozaki gives them a lot more weighty if this was all happening from the shadows and nobody knew what was really going on, but instead everything's front and center and in the spotlight. Also, what the fuck are these things? Are they like little helpers? We know that they are just people in costumes, but where the fuck did they come from? Why are they dressed like that? We're gonna make that mysterious, but not the main premise that's practically begging to be drenched in delicious, shadowy goodness? Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, each character has their own trials and tribulations that they must overcome with everyone's help, and this is supposed to voice some sense of togetherness within the bunch, and while this does sound very interesting, the show does it somewhat ham-fistedly. Some side characters get a lot of spotlight, and some don't. While the main premise is in the spotlight, there's too much left unexplained that needs to be explained, and too much explained that doesn't need to be explained. At the end of the day, I cared more about the side characters than our mains, and that sucks because the finale focuses on our main guy only, pretty much. And during the entire middle third of the show, he was basically a side character in and of himself. The consensus from anime fans seems to be that this was the least triggering Studio Trigger show to date. And I have to agree, this seems like a misstep or maybe even made by a completely different studio, if it wasn't for the dead giveaway of character designs. Oh well, let's see how their next original work panned out. Darling and the FranXX. We kicked off the winter 2018 season with the much-hyped collaboration between A1 Pictures and Studio Trigger, Darling and the FranXX. Now since this show was a collab, you may think this show has no place on a Studio Trigger triple play, but Studio Trigger was in charge of character design, story, key animation, and well, basically everything except the in-betweens. I mean hell, just look at the character designs. This show has Studio Trigger's fingerprints all over it. Not to mention these two guys are the exact same character with the same arcs and design, and actually a lot of these characters are the same ones from Kiznaiver. Huh. Anyway, Darling and the FranXX takes place in the far-flung future where the surface of the Earth is completely bereft of any life save for mobile plantations that house our group of main characters who are children tasked with piloting cute waifu mechs because why the fuck not at this point. Those mechs are meant to fight the Klaxosaurs, which have come from the depths of the Earth and have nearly wiped out everything on the surface. The mechs have to be piloted with one male and one female pilot who join together in this setup, and the guy basically mounting the female and grabbing her by the ass handlebars. Yeah, this show is chock full of sex metaphors from from start to finish. Our main guy, Hiro, is on the ropes after his previous pilot partnership goes south on him. And afterwards, he just can't get it up anymore. I mean mechs. He can't get his mech up anymore. Literally, he can't get it up with any other female pilot until obvious best girl 02 shows up and takes a liking to him and has an awesome session of mech battles with him that rebuild his confidence. Also, our love polygon is back because Hiro's childhood friend Ichigo wants him like oh so bad, yo, but she doesn't know how to tell him that because it makes her feel funny. And by the time she actually gets the confidence up to tell him how she feels, it's just too late. He's already knee deep in another relationship. But that doesn't stop her from trying to get to him anyway. Hell yeah, girl, get it. Don't even ask. And so basically the setup is Kiznaiver with mechs thrown in. At its core, you have an emotionally damaged main guy whose childhood friend gets cock-blocked by some weird chick with candy-colored hair. To be fair though, FranXX does a way better job of selling you on the main cast and making you give a fuck about them, and the supporting characters too. If you can get past the ridiculously over-the-top sex metaphors and keep pushing through, you find a particularly poignant anime that might have something worthwhile to say about the relationships between men and women. And it totally isn't a thinly veiled attempt by Shinzo Abe to get that declining birth rate up or anything like that. Also, if there was ever any doubt about the pedigree of Studio Trigger coming from Gainax, the number of Evangelion references in FranXX should put those thoughts to bed immediately. Kill la Kill had a few homages to NGE here and there, but FranXX cranks it up to 11 with entire plot points and even the concept of Klaxo swords themselves being completely ripped off. The other NGE references are buried in some spoilers, so I'm just going to have to admit those for now, and you'll just have to take my word for it that the rabbit hole goes way deeper. We reach what seems to be the end of the series around episode 15, but we got another 9 left in the tank, so what do? How about some slice of life fuckery and let's go to fucking space? Seriously, we just invent a whole new enemy to face in the last stretch, and the last 2 episodes are meant to cover nearly a decade of time passing by. Rush does not even begin to describe the last bit of this anime, and it left me feeling as though I had missed some sort of entire arc in the back half of the show. Needless to say, people were pissed, and I have to agree to a certain extent. This was probably the least ambitious Trigger show to date. Sure, the initial premise of a commentary on male-female relationships explained through mech battles may sound interesting, but this show borrows so heavily from Kiznaiver and Evangelion that at the end of the day, it barely even feels like its own intellectual property. So how do these 3 Trigger shows stack up? Well, Kill la Kill has a strong beginning and middle and only falters a bit during its back third, but it's still enjoyable throughout. Kiznaiver seems overly ambitious and bounces back and forth between mystery and commentary on the human condition and the occasional bit of nonsense. And then we have Darling in the FranXX, which retreads a lot of ground covered by other series, which makes you just wish you had rewatched NGE and Kiznaiver instead. So that does it. That is the Studio Trigger triple play. I didn't hit all of their shows that they've done, but they got some more coming down the pipe soon, so keep an eye out for Studio Trigger Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. Catch you next time. Peace.